No problem. Okay, so how's the lockdown situation, and like how are you dealing with it?
I'm dealing with it okay. In Hindi we say itne mein to itna hi milega. So it's just the world we are living in, and things are somehow falling in place, and I just have nothing to complain.
Yeah. So I
How are
think
you doing?
I'm doing good. I think I'm having a pretty um, productive time talking to people about their process and about their experiences. Also around this lockdown time, because a lot of people are doing some really creative projects around this whole situation.
Absolutely.
So, but I think it has affected everyone in different and similar ways. And
Yeah.
now this is the interaction I think we're going to have for a long time, I think.
Yeah, I hope so. At least until and unless the vaccine is out, the process of the vaccine is still going. So it looks like at least 12 more months.
um, um, Pakistani Indian artists collaborating together, it's not very encouraged. So oh, how do you look how do you look at it, like?
Oh, I just love breaking rules, and this is one of the moments when I'm breaking a rule. So I'm. This is the only happy thing happening in my life. Looking at the world around me, it's all like sad. People are going back home, and like the people are walking kilometers and kilometers, and there's almost all. We are almost living in a failed state. But obviously, I'm way more privileged, and I'm sitting in Germany, whereas I'm also helpless somehow that I can't do anything back at home, and my hands are tied. But obviously, like I'm keeping in touch with my peers, and trying to help them as much as I can. So that's what I'm doing.
But do you think that being in Germany is better? Like, is it's a good place to be in right now? Like, with all the situation and
Germany is probably the heaven in Europe right now, and if not the world. And actually, people are going out, and things are getting normal than before. Like, and half of the restaurants are open, big shops are open. People are maintaining physical distancing, and things are better compared to the rest of the world. So obviously, it is a better place to be. But then again, I have my family back at home, so
yeah,
thinking about them, it makes me worry.
yeah. So I think let's start from something that I am interested in, because I have known your work for a while, and I kind of had this curiosity of knowing your artistic side. I know that your interests in politics and you have very strong opinions about it, but I think I really want to start from how you developed interests in also politics, but also like that also on a creative side. So like growing up, did you have this idea that you will be taking up something very artistic or something very creative and take it as a career?
Starting off, whenever I started photographing, whenever I started journalism and mass comm in my graduation, and afterwards, whenever I started photographing, I was always photographing something which meant something to me, and it's either part of the society which I'm living in, or maybe the people whom I'm surrounded with, or maybe the people who are around me. So it was always a case that was whatever I did was socially impactful in a way. So after a point of time, obviously, as I grew as an artist, my opinions became more in depth, and it things started changing for me. Where I started going to college, and my political activities, and my and the students' union, being a part of the student union, studying in a college which was so politically active, it kind of started getting more in depth in my work. So that's how I started photographing things which was always political, and I believe that nothing can be apolitical, especially Even if I'm talking to you right now, obviously this has a political denotation to it as well. Being an artist, it was always something which I was doing political. Either it was outright or it had a political meaning to it. So being an artist, when I started photographing, for example, the particular project which kind of gone viral, it was a project which was about the current socio-political scenario in India, how cow became a political animal. So it was something which I was observing. So as an artist, so and obviously everybody was clicking pictures. Everybody was clicking pictures, and I was not. I was a photojournalist once, but my photograph had a different way. I always believed that I could photograph in a different way as well. So I started photographing women wearing cow masks, where it had a meaning to it as well, where a mask is a form of expression, which kind of serves my purpose to make those women anonymous as well. So that's how my projects were always somehow related to politics or the social scenarios around us or whatever was happening around us.
But do you think that growing up and being born and brought up in Calcutta kind of contributes to you and your understanding of art, because it's a city that is very rich in literature and art? So do you think that somewhere kind of contributes in your artistic understanding?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's just the vibe of Calcutta which made me a person who I am today, and also probably because I belong to a very middle class family in Calcutta, and the way I was born and brought up, I was born and brought up among strong women around me, which was something which played a big role. I knew that how a family actually works, and looking at my grandmother, who was a single mother at one point of time, and then I was brought up in a family where, even though nobody was directly politically connected, but there was a situation where everybody had their own political opinions. And if you go out in the streets, which is pretty much a culture in Calcutta, that people go out in the streets just to have tea in the street side tea stalls. And whenever you go out there, you just don't have any other conversation other than politics. It's either about the so-called leftist rule in Bengal, which stayed for 34 years, or maybe how bad they did in those 35 years. Those conversations are always happening. So growing up in Calcutta obviously formed my political opinions and as well as my artistic opinions. And obviously, it meant it was a huge part of my. It portrays a huge part of my artistic practice.
So, like you mentioned, your growing up and having these experiences around you, and especially having this history attached to the city that you were growing up, right? But like today, we see a lot of people talking about issues in the community, issues of the society, issues of women. But how much do you think is history important? Because you're commenting on something which is coming from somewhere and it has a lot of layers to it. So, like growing up in a city which had a history and of this leftist rule and other things. So how much do you think it is important to understand your history and then kind of comment on what is happening?
It was pretty much important because whenever I was growing up, I grew up looking at movies of Satyajit Ray, Mrinal Sen and Ritik Ghotto. And so whatever was happening, I always was informed about the history, what was around me. But then again, it was a situation that it was somehow unavoidable to really acknowledge what was happening. So history is pretty much important, but like I have lived through a time where in Calcutta growing up, I have never thought about a difference of being a Hindu or a Muslim. But then again, in my early 20s, when I started going to college, I moved to Delhi. I studied in Jamia Millia Islamia for my post-graduation. After moving to Delhi, my views kind of changed, and
Different
I kind
culture.
of figured out that, okay, this is a locality where the Muslims, which is more, it has a more Muslim population. This is a locality which has a more of Hindu population, and I started uh, seeing differences, that how people react to a halal meat and a non-halal meat. Growing up in Calcutta, it was explicitly not there. Obviously, there are localities which is densely populated by Muslims in Calcutta, but
Yeah.
it was not as explicitly on your face as it was in Delhi. So obviously, growing up in Calcutta did make a difference to my art, and obviously it formed a different form of historical opinion.
But then, like, it's very interesting, like, how you were discovering how people react to, halal meat and, not halal meat. So, do you think that the context changed like that? Because do you think that that's how we kind of develop stereotypes around things?
Um, See, I think this is where it really becomes political. And why it becomes so political? Because living in a so-called communist regime where you thought about somebody's religion in that way, or you thought about a certain scenario which was what was happening outside of Bengal. It was pretty much closed as a society. North India, what I saw after going to Delhi in my 20s, North India was always like that. It was always about हमारे राष्ट्रीय भाषा हिंदी है. It was always about what is your religion, what is this, what is your jat. So growing up in Bengal, I think that is one of the only good things happened while me growing up as a historical reference. So I think somehow that answers your question, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So we hear this a lot, that art has always been, and it is not something like we hear it today, but when we look at the history, we always comment it like politics has always been there. So I know you answered this earlier, but how do you look at this? Because now youngsters are like young artists are really commenting on women rights, their projects are around, very issue oriented, that this is the issue that we're talking about. And so how do you think that this is shaping the art world? Because everybody is talking about politics, everybody is talking about that art has always.
Absolutely. I think this is how the artists from the people who they are looking at and growing up, I think that is where they become successful. That there's a trend that obviously, other than fashion photography and photojournalism, there's a trend of creating art which is pretty much concerned about certain social constructs which is problematic, or maybe where those people are voicing their opinions in their own way, what they think. And whenever that is the way probably we move forward, where you have artists, you have people who are concerned about the society and who are aware about the problem of the society, and they are. It's a great thing for the future and the upcoming artists.
Okay, so tell us about mixing of art and activism, like in your practice, and then how do you look at it, like, globally?
That I did everything. I went out and clicked pictures of bands. I went out and helped other journalists to find out stories, and I worked for a small time in a small fashion magazine as well as a intern. So I have done everything, and I have finally realized that those are some things which somehow never attracted me. And so as those things were tried and tested, and I knew what was important, and I knew that voicing the opinion about something which I believe was very important. But the only thing which kind of took me forward is probably the support of my parents, and where I understood that, okay, fine, whatever I'm saying, there are people to listen, there are people who would listen to it, there are people who kind of appreciate my growing up. So I absolutely give it to the people around me who were having the conversation, and kind of letting me know, okay, this is right, this is wrong, and you should try and think about it in this way. So I think those guided views were very important, and that is where I started working with art, which was talking about socially important issues, socially relevant issues, I mean.
Yeah. So right now you're on a very interesting project, which I would like to ask that what kind of activism are you working on? Like what kind of activism are you involved in right now? And how are you approaching?
I so my career has changed from a photographer to a photojournalist to an artist to a political artist and activist, and I am working on a book of my own right now, which is scheduled to come maybe whenever I finish it. I don't know when is that, and other than that, I'm working on a particular piece which is not related to photography anymore, and this is kind of my first project, which is kind of mixing with uh, performative art, and it's a theatrical kind of art piece which I'm working on.
Okay, so I'm interested to know about your podcast also, because that's what you've been doing. And
Podcast, actually before podcast, I started working on a small blog where I started forming opinions about very, very different kind of opinions of people, which probably didn't have a place in a newspaper because there's a institutional barrier which comes in. And so I started working on this small blog called United Against Fascism, where it kind of addresses the growing fascism all around the world, and how fascism is imposed on normal people, be it in the form of surveillance, be it in the form of a language, be it in the form of architecture, or be it in the form of like tracking apps, which is going to be a trend very soon. Um, so after starting that particular mouthpiece, so called, I realized that it actually addresses a very niche audience, and the niche audience is like, those are very well written articles, but that only reaches up to a certain class. So then I thing which is kind of a conversation with people, which would help me to kind of document certain things and put it out in a form of podcast. So I sort of thought of starting it with Instagram, but then I later realized that the value which I want of a podcast probably would not come in the form of Instagram. So I started interviewing people about their opinions and how they have grown up, and certain personalities which I found interesting. And actually, this week I interviewed someone from Pakistan as well, who spoke about who's an activist, who's a very well-known activist from Lahore, who spoke about women rights in Pakistan. So yeah, so those are my forms of activism, staying far away from home somehow.
that's great. And I think I have not um, gone through a lot of your podcasts, but I think I am kind of familiar with your different approaches to different things, your work has, your projects have expanded, and now that I mentioned that I look at you as a researcher, because now your project is expanding in a different direction, and now that you're working on a book. But working in India and having a project that was around the issues that you were experiencing, now after so many years, where do you think that your project, the Cow project, where do you think that it stands? Having such a strong, putting such a strong voice out in the society that this is something that we should be. And now looking back at that project, where do you
Years now. So once I started working on the project, it was a photography project primarily, but then I was quite fortunate that I had the chance to turn it into a documentary film with the help of one journalist, one filmmaker from Spain, and one filmmaker from Canada. So it's supposed to be released. It's supposed to have a world TV premiere in the upcoming few days. And other than that, the book is kind of a literary extension to the Cow Mask project, which I did. So I have mostly covered all the spaces which I wanted to cover. After this, whenever I'm working on something, it's a form of my artistic practice. I try to give it a layer of all the three parts, where it's audiovisual as well as literary part. So that's how it's been going, brother.
cool? So faced in your daily life, you face something which really is relevant to your Cow Mask project?
There are good and experience. There are good and bad experiences for both things.
So just like an experience that kind of inspired you to do something, maybe like a fun fact or something.
There was a situation where I was at one point of time known as the Cow Mask guy, and that is something which is really flattering, to be very honest, that you're being associated with your artwork as an artist, and that is something one could only dream of. I think that is something which was surely a great motivation. And there's a friend of mine, and I don't know if she's watching it, but there was a friend of mine who did a small, she does videos on television, on social media, and she did a piece where she mentioned my name, because my name is really tough to pronounce, but she mentioned my name, and she said, "Oh, that Cow Mask guy was traveling around the world." So that's something which was really fascinating.
And you really travel with your mask, like you do travel with it, and you think of
because when I started off the project, it became really viral all over the world. So I got to know people whom I didn't know before, and those were people from various other countries. So at first, when I started off photographing with the mask, I had only one mask. Then I ordered 5 more masks as a form. Like it was probably a hygienic way of photographing, because once I'm giving the mask to someone, I didn't use that mask. I washed it and then I gave it, because it was made out of rubber. Afterwards, what happened that when I went out in different parts of the world, be it parts of Europe, be it parts of US, I always carried the mask, and whenever I met someone, I said, "Wow, do you have the mask with you?" I said, "Yes, can we meet tomorrow?" So I'll bring the mask out with me. So I usually met that person second day again to photograph them with the mask, and it was it was really fun to do that.
Yeah, it's fun, and also I think it kind of builds a community when you meet people who are like-minded. And but do you think that words like activism and feminism still kind of scare people?
See, I think it's really sad that we have to put those in words. This is something we should be born with, and this is something which is a form of practice which needs to be injected in people. That is something which makes me sad. It's not their reaction to it. I again, as I said, that probably my privilege, how I have grown up, where I've grown up, these are things which kind of enabled me to have a sensibility about these words. But I am really sad for those who are privileged and still don't really acknowledge it, and still get scared of this word. And other than that, people who are not privileged and not aware about it, that is why we create art, in order to make them aware and make them understand that what the problem with the whole action is.
Yeah. So lastly, do you think that whenever people are going to look at you or look at your new works, even you wouldn't, even you're not in the position to kind of let go of that project, do something entirely different, or you think that that was a part of your artistic growth, and now you are doing some kind of research and something which has taken you into a different direction, or the Kauma project still remains, the project for you?
It's something which I have created. It will always stay with me. I don't have any kind of objections to it, to be honest, because it's one of my most successful works. But other than that, I did take some time to really get over the thing and come into the form of activism and different kind of art, because it was something which I was somehow thinking a lot in what way to create, because I just don't believe in working on something just out of the blue and creating it out of the blue. So it's something, it's a part of me anyhow. But yes, whenever there's another artwork, obviously it will keep adding to my name, and like it's just a part of my artistic practice which is ever growing and which will grow.
Okay, so any last comments you want to share? Anything like something that you're working on? Anything from your book? Do you want to share something?
There's nothing from my book which I could share right now. There's nothing.
Plans, if there are any plans of visiting Pakistan, or if you would want to ever.
Oh, for sure.
Interviewing a lot of people here, na? So
for sure. I would love to visit Pakistan. For that, I just need the lockdown to get over. It's just a matter of time that I would try and visit Pakistan. It's one of the countries where I always wanted to visit. So obviously I will.
I hope. Yeah. So any last comments you want to share something, or?
Yeah, just keep fighting for your rights and don't bow down to the fascists around you, and like just do what you're doing and just keep on fighting for what you believe in and what you believe is right, even if you're a part of the minority.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for taking out.
Thank you so much.